Hi, it's Linda Adler-Kastner, Program Chair for 4Cs 2016. And right now we're going to do another video interview with a Taking Action Workshop facilitator, this time with Carolyn Calhoon-Dillahunt. Welcome, Carolyn.
Thank you.
Maybe you could begin by introducing yourself, telling us a little bit about you.
Yeah, my name is Carolyn Calhoun-Dillahunt, and I am currently serving in the C's Policy Fellow role. And it's kind of a role that's being defined in the organizations to basically advocate on behalf of higher education policy and also to try to connect members to higher education policy. And so, but I've been a longtime educator. I have been teaching at the two-year college at Yakima Valley Community College since 1999. And so for quite a while now.
Tell us a little bit about what makes you passionate about this work.
So I think because I came into education through K-12, I've always been pretty aware that policies were affecting the work that I did in the classroom, sometimes only vaguely aware. And so I've always worked in kind of poor, fairly rural areas. And so we received Title I funding, and I might have students with IEPs in my classroom because they are English language learners or because they are being serviced through migrant funding or through special education funding. Mm-hmm. And so I was sort of aware how these federal policies were affecting me, but I think my state was a little bit ahead of many states in terms of starting to get on the assessment bandwagon. And so early in my career, we had a statewide test that was a graduation requirement, and so we were piloting it. And I started to understand how assessment was really sort of driving the curriculum and driving what I was doing in the classroom. And then very soon after that, No Child Left Behind, the Elementary and Secondary Reauthorization Act, came in and really changed the face of assessment and really changed the face of curriculum. And that made me all the more aware of the fact that as educators, we're experts in these topics, but we're not always active in these topics. And so these changes are happening to us versus us supporting or providing input or trying to even drive the direction that changes are going. Increasingly, I'm seeing nonprofit organizations, non-government organizations that are driving a lot of change, and it just becomes all the more incumbent upon us to make sure that we are taking an active role, because change is happening and it's happening rapidly, and we're often kind of caught unprepared and then having to react to what's going on instead of being proactive. And so I'm passionate about it because it affects my students, and I see it every day. It affects their access, it affects their success, it affects everything that they do with their higher education, and I believe in those things, and so I need to advocate for them because they cannot or do not know how to advocate for themselves.
Wonderful. That's terrific. Thank you. If you could, tell us a story about a successful organizing or facilitating effort that you've been involved in, and what made it successful.
So when I thought about this question, I first kind of turned to NCTE, and I really admire the direction that they have taken as a member organization. It's, an old organization that's been around more than 100 years. And, with Kent Williamson's passing, it's all the more poignant that the fact that we moved from just professional development and publication as our goals to also adding in this policy awareness and policy advocacy work. And I think that's important both to keep our organization vibrant, but also to help our members, to practically help our members, because they need more than just professional development and tools for the classroom. They need to actually know how to advocate for themselves. And so it started with some grassroots efforts like Slate and the Spokesperson Network, and then we instituted by our Office of Policy Research. Later, we implemented a director for a DC office, and so we actually have, NCT staff that are right in DC. They're hearing what's going on in education policy and able to react. we started understanding the value of coalition building, and we have done this both for education policy in the legislative sort of policy, but also for the National Center of Literacy Education that we formed in late 2011. From there, we have grown. We've added annual legislative platforms. We have a National Day on Writing that started 2009, and that was one of the first Senate resolutions that we ever saw, that we had some impact on. We've added a policy analyst, a statewide system of policy analysts to kind of explore what's going on in the states, because often the states have far more impact on our daily lives than federal policies do. Mm-hmm. And so I'm very pleased with the inroads that the organization has taken. And I'm not a leader in that. I'm just a supporter in those movements. Mm-hmm. What I do know that it is most policy is local, and most policy is far less organized and deliberate and legislative in its form. And so the policy that you do that impacts you the most is going to be the stuff that's happening at your institution or things that are going on in your state. And so there are some things happening in the state right now, and I can't say that I've successfully organized for that yet, though I'm aware and trying to be involved. But in my institution, I look at efforts that our department has organized and done that have really made a difference. So we kind of we did some research and changed the cut scores for our placement, and so that has helped with student success and retention. Mm-hmm. We have taken away grades from developmental courses, and we've been pleased with the impact that that's had on student persistence rates. We're initiating more conscientious advising, and so we have better orientation, and that's something that's a cross-disciplinary effort that's going on. And so these are the things that really probably have the most positive impact on daily life, and those are all policies, and those are all things that people can take action in.
That's fantastic. Thank you. Maybe if you could talk about, and maybe you've already talked a little bit about this, what principles lead you to be an effective organizers, or what principles do you think folks need to develop or remember in order for them to be most effective?
Well, we are trained rhetoricians, so it means we're very good at debate and we're very good at critique, and those are often not the best things to bring forth. They're still good tools to have. But so much of this really involves coalition building, consensus, collaboration. And so we need to kind of take an open stance. We need to do probably a lot more listening, mm-hmm. and be pretty strategic in how we approach things. And so it's, democracy is messy and it's ugly and it's inefficient, and it's still the best way to go about things, I think. But we're never going to get everything we want. We're sometimes going to have to collaborate with people we don't care for very much. We're coming from very different, there's controversy, and so we don't agree on approaches. We don't agree on philosophies. And so if we want to get things done, we're going to have to find some common ground. And so I think that we're prepared to do that. It's just a little foreign to the way scholars go about communicating and doing their work. And so I think those are important qualities that we need to do if we're going to make policy.
Great. Terrific. So with the workshop that you're going to facilitate along with Lori Shore on making policy, what can folks expect?
Well, we are not sure who's going to attend, so we've kind of planned for people who have, practical policies right at the institutional state level that they want to affect, but we're also prepared for people who just want to find a way into policy making. Mm-hmm. And so we plan to provide a bit of an overview on just what is policy and to understand how it's made and the different levels of policy that they might anticipate being involved in. And then we'll probably do a little scenario to show how policy making works. And then we're going to have some work time where people can either a series of guiding questions where people can either work on how they're going to approach their own policy making in their own institution or state, or how they could get into this, whether it's through a NCT or C's policy concern or common policy concerns that are occurring kind of across the nation that they might want to be involved with. And so we hope that people will take away some ideas for how to implement change and how to become involved, and how to know where to get the information and who to talk to and how to be influential.
Okay, wonderful. Is there anything that you think folks should bring with them to the session, or other things that they should know as they think about coming to your session at 4Cs 2016?
I think that if you have a policy, especially institutional level or state level, that you care about, I would bring it so that you have some time to really think through how to build the coalitions that you need and where is the best place and what is the best method to affect change. But you're welcome to come if you're just interested in policy. There's a lot going on in the organization and many people don't know. So I would welcome anyone who's just interested in that level of rulemaking to come and to explore what's going on.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you.